Hi, I'm sitting here today with Steve Ward, Managing Director of Inside Partners. So great to meet with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Steve, you have some amazing background for starting as a CISO and maybe before, and also being an investor today at Inside Partners. So can you share more about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, I sort of took an unconventional route to get here. Been at Insight for about a year and a half. My only focus is cybersecurity. Before that was the CISO at Home Depot, CISO at TIA, and really started in the corporate world at JP Morgan in various security operations roles. And then before that was in the government. So not a career investor by any means. A lot of my investing strategies that I use is really looking back of what it felt like to be an operator. And if it was a solution that I can invest in now to really help ops or engineering and cyber, I'll invest.
So you're meeting with a lot of companies and people in the industry, and what would you say are the 1-2 hottest trends that you see in cyber innovation?
Yeah, so I'll give you two. One is tech, one is actually, I call it innovating on the basics. So really interested, and this is probably 5-6 years out, on where AI is going, ML is going, and from the vulnerabilities it creates. So not necessarily on how AI works and how it makes things better, faster, smarter, but how quickly it moves and whether or not it's creating exploits and risk in an environment. I think it's going to change the way vulnerability management works. So I think we'll move away from traditional patching and more into policy-driven solutions, just because of how quickly it moves. The other thing that I'm seeing, I'm definitely seeing more experienced founders younger. So it's more of an innovating on how you personally operate. So I'm always talking about there's a difference between a founder and a CEO. And I think we're really starting to see amazing founders become CEOs and how they're learning to build businesses that are efficient and effective. It used to be this thing of hey, ARR growth, how do I triple, double over 3 years? Now it's how do you run a business? How do you run it effectively and efficiently? And I think that's turning, in some ways, innovating founders to be CEOs and how to actually run a business.
So, Steve, why is that exciting to you as a former CISO?
So look, I fell in love with Dazz actually before I started as an investor. So it was something that you and I and the relationship we had beforehand, which wasn't that long. It was, pretty short relationship. I fell in love with it based off of the concept. I think it was before you all were even building it, which was, again, I've always felt the pain as an operator to not be able to work well with my peers from a remediation standpoint. So security always sits on one side of the fence and says, these things are broken, go fix them. And we kick them to our peers, and then they have to deal with that exhaust that comes from that. When I met you all, I loved the approach that you were taking was instead of really focusing on the find, which a lot of people do, the visibility in finding something, you approached it from, well, let's really help the folks that have to remediate and let's make it easier for them. People don't realize how strained the relationship is between security and DevOps or app dev. And I fell in love with the idea of you're giving a solution that actually improves my personal relationship with app dev, DevOps, where I'm providing a solution to them that makes their job easier, versus what we typically see in security is, I'm going to give you 1,000 things that you have to fix today, and tomorrow I'll give you another 1,000. I just love that approach, and I love the remediation side of it, of helping the DevOps folks fix, rather than just sort of piling things on.
So, if we're already talking about the dev, what are some of the challenges that you see in modern cloud development and, challenges from security perspective?
So look, there's the typical thing that people are going to, say is sort of obvious, and that's that we used to only have to worry about on-prem, and that produced a certain number of issues that had to be addressed. Now you're multi-cloud, so you've multiplied that by 2, 3. I love the CSPM world, and I love what it does from a visibility standpoint. But with how quickly cloud moves, how things are spinning up and being taken down as fast as they are, I think security has to really focus on time to value, time to remediation, and be able to keep pace with that. We're used to more static environments like on-prem, where things are pretty static, versus now dynamic environments, things coming and going. And how do you really focus on fixing within the development cycle rather than after the fact? So I used the term before, and I'm always using it, is there's a lot of exhaust that gets created from these environments. So how do we look at technology that's going to produce clean air from that so that people have a little bit easier time breathing?
So what is, like, if you look at, the current remediation process within organizations today, and, you led a couple, what would you say is, what is wrong with the current remediation process in an organization?
I think there's two things. There's one where if you're waiting to just remediate after the fact, I think you're missing half the game. So the first part is, how do we get clean coming in? Always talking about the cloud environments, post CI/CD pipeline, you're constantly washing your face with a dirty cloth. So what you want to do is actually, the first half is focus making it clean coming in. That's number one. I think we're way too reactive of after the fact, things are developed. I'd rather see us really focus on drift after the fact, but be cleaner coming in. And then I think, look, we don't do a great job consolidating all findings and prioritizing them. So we're not looking at it going, all right, I've got an infrastructure finding, I've got an app finding, I may have a regulatory finding, an audit finding. We just have to be empathetic to our peers to know that we're handing them 4 or 5 different lists from 2 to 3 different environments, and they don't know what to fix first. So when you have too much and you don't have direction, you typically just sit statically and you don't do anything, which is another reason why, I love the tool from the beginning, is because you're able to sort of clean that up for everyone. But
in your experience, why is there a friction between dev and security, and is it growing, or is it?
Yeah, I used to say, like, I had peers that would tell me, like, I'd love to go out and have a drink with you, but I don't want you in the room when we're solving a problem. And it took a while for me to realize what that meant. People want you to be part of the solution. And if you go through life and you're meeting 10 people in a day and 9 of them are negative most of the time and 1 is positive, you're going to gravitate towards that positive person. Security is no different right now. If I'm invited into the room where their job is to solve a problem for the business and build something that generates revenue, they want you to be part of the solution. They do not want you to be a barrier to progress. And I think for too long, what I did when I had those jobs is I went in thinking, what could go wrong with your idea? What could create risk with your idea? And I was always sort of the negative, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, this is too much risk. I think we need to be better leaders and understand what their role is. The ultimate goal is to produce something amazing for a customer that generates revenue. How do you aid them in doing that? And until we really realize that, when we talk about shift left, I'm always saying shift left to me is actually us just becoming more empathetic to what their role is. And if you can become more empathetic and you can walk in there and say, I'm going to help you and enable you, great. But if you're going to walk in there and say, these are the 10 things that why this isn't going to work, people aren't going to want you in the room, and they're going to go develop without you, which brings us right back to, then I'm going to have to remediate after the fact, which is just a losing game.
So what would be your advice as a former CISO to CISOs moving to the cloud? What is the right time to consider deploying a solution like Dazz?
Yeah, I think the big push right now is a bit sort of redundant to what we used to do. So if you go back to the way we were building data centers, right, on the infrastructure side, we would immediately plug in like a vulnerability management tool, and we would want to scan and find everything. I hate when security doesn't learn from its mistakes. Because now what we're doing in cloud, and the first thing we're saying is, I want visibility. With that visibility comes findings. With those findings becomes an overwhelming feeling of, okay, what do I fix first? I'd love for CISOs to start actually considering plugging in solutions like Dazz so you're clean up front and you build that process and that pipeline to be clean coming in. Not go, okay, I'm going to plug in CSPM, I'm going to get all of this visibility, I'm going to get an overwhelming feeling, okay, now I need something like Dazz. Again, we're talking about morale, we're talking about retention for ops people. Like, let's think about the humans that are on the other side of that. I would rather see someone plug in Dazz, get that operationalized, and then get the visibility, because now you're cleaning that as you go through. Hopefully we can convince people to kind of go that route and take a bit more of a proactive approach before you get all that visibility that we all know and love, and we need it. But I'd much rather see the Dazz plugged in first, not second.
Coming into 2023, what should be the priorities of CISOs? And we're talking about 2023 economic downturn situation, maybe some kind of political situation in Europe. Like, what would be your advice for prioritization?
So yeah, I could give you some long answers. I'll try to keep it very short. Number one is, CISOs are always under financial pressure. Like, I think there's a bit of noise over this right now of, hey, are you flat? Are you down? I've never had a year where I didn't feel like I would be flat or down. I wasn't always down, but you were always fighting for priorities and budget, especially in the financial world, like at JP Morgan. You had to really fight for what you thought you needed to do that year. They did not give you blank checks. So I think we have to take it in perspective that this isn't like unknown for CISOs to go, wow, I don't have a ton of money this year. I think in the media, we talk too much about, oh, CISO budgets are up. They're up 15%, 30%. Budgets aren't affected by what's going on. Budgets are affected every year, right? We're running businesses here. So number one, I think we're used to it. Number two is, when budgets are down 20, 30%, I think people have to realize that there's usually 20, 30% of waste built into every budget. I've cut 10, 15, 20, 30% from my budget and still not cut to the bone. So it's not that much of a hit. What it does is it forces CISOs and founders running businesses to cut waste and really look hard and make tough decisions on things that, hey, it's just not needed right now. I actually wish we did it every year, right? Let's be efficient. Jamie Dimon used to say, you don't cut cost, you cut waste. And let's look at our businesses and let's run efficiently and effectively. What it typically does for CISOs from a technology standpoint is they start looking at consolidation. I've got 5 tools doing something. I really only need 3. It's going to push them to go, I'm going to ditch these 2. And again, I think that's a good thing. Like, let's sort of run these things effectively. So I do think you're going to see consolidation. I think CISOs are pushing it. We did a couple different surveys and some amazing results that came out of it that's a priority for them. One is time to value. They do not want to wait 6 months for you to prove value in their environment. Number 2 was, we want platforms, not features. And number 3 was, we're actually really, really tired, sort of the tool fatigue conversation. So if you look at those 3 things, you can kind of sum them up, that I need to be able to prove to you in a proof of value that I can be valuable to you and not be ops heavy in a week, right? Not months. And I need to be able to rip and replace things. Like, let me replace some of the solutions. If I plug one new thing in, let me take out 2. There's going to be that push. That push is never going to go away. And I think we need to build companies and invest in companies that have that mindset.
If Dazz was a car, what car would it be?
I'm a bit of a car guy, so this could be tough. I would put Dazz in the category of a fast pickup truck. Like, I don't know pickup trucks that well, but like a a Ford Raptor. And the reason why I would say it's a pickup truck rather than like most people would say like a Ferrari or something like that is because I think the company is being built with sort of a blue collar mentality, that remediation end of it. So it's fast. Ford Raptor is really nice on the inside. But it's a utility vehicle. You all are building something that helps people build things better, faster, helps on the remediation side. I just think of you all more as a pickup truck that I can load a bunch of stuff into and get a lot of really good work done. So I'll stick with that answer.
Thank you. It was great talking to you, Steve, and looking forward to continue chatting later.
Yeah, thanks for having me.